And Miles, I think you're staying with us for this segment. You touched on the Yankees. You touched on the Mets. Obviously, the Mets faltering. The Yankees looking to make it an even dozen tonight, going for the sweep up in Toronto. Put them 4.5 games above the Blue Jays for first in the division. There's an old saying in baseball, which is divisions aren't won in May or April, but they certainly are lost, and the Yankees doing everything in their power literally to avoid that, going for 12 straight tonight. Both Judge and Stanton last night went deep as the Yankees cruised to a 9-1 win at the Rogers Center. Obviously, the Yankees' bats have been hot. 34 home runs lead the lead, 23 on this 11-game winning streak. Judge has 13 RBIs in the past 5 games. Miles, coming back to you. Yankees trailing 2-1. How are the Bronx Bombers going to be able to get the sweep against the Blue Jays and, move further up the ladder, not only in the MLB rankings, but obviously within their own division?
Well, this entire month it's been the bats for the Yankees. As we know, they just have this unbelievable core there between Giancarlo, Rizzo, Judge, just all the home run hitters you could ever ask for. You touched on it. It's Judge having 13 RBIs in his last 5 games. This is an unbelievable run, and he hasn't done it alone. Rizzo and him tied for 9 home runs, leading the MLB, and it makes things really easy on your pitching staff. When you give them that much run support, you give the opportunity for your starter to really settle into games and get outs, and you get to start to feel really comfortable if you're the starters. It was a couple nights ago, it was Nestor Cortez on the mound. In the first inning, I believe it was in Kansas City, Nestor was really able to settle in, and that was really in part because, Rizzo and Giancarlo, they had these back-to-back home runs in the top of the first, and when that happens and you're on the mound, you just sit back and relax, and you're able to pitch your game, but you're in control of the ball game. So, it's a positive feedback loop. When the offense is firing like this, it makes things easy for everybody else, and it's going to take another offensive juggernaut to beat the Blue Jays today.
And I think, you touched on that game in Kansas City where Nestor kind of settles in. It's not lost on this pitching staff. Obviously, the run support is huge, but they've been impeccable.
Yeah.
We're talking MLB second best in earned runs average at 2.62, 5th in quality starts, and a Yankees bullpen that had some question marks coming into the year. When your starters are giving you, 5 and above for innings, it just does so much work for that middle bullpen so that you can just go straight to, middle relief setup closer versus having to, monitor innings, and that starts to take a toll later in a series when you're like, I can't go to this guy because he went out and pitched last night, and then, 2 other guys went out and pitched before we even got to our closer. So the Yankees bats obviously going a long way to help, boost this club's ability to win. That all being said, this team has been able to battle late. We think back to the first game in Rogers Center where Glaber hits that huge RBI single to set the Yankees up to win that game. Looking back at last night, a 6-run 7th inning blew the game wide open for the Yankees. Not without drama, though, as Marwin Gonzalez was ruled to be safe in a rundown. Replay review showed that Vladdy put the tag on him, but the Toronto had already lost its challenge.
Yep. Couldn't use it.
It's tough. It's tough if you're the Blue Jays in that situation. But that being said, if you're a Yankee fan, and especially if you're in that Yankee clubhouse, and you're looking at this game, you're down 2-1 in the bottom of the 6th right now. You know that this team, and as much as it pains me to say, because, spoiler, I'm not a big Yankees fan, go White Sox, this team it finally looks like they've got it right in terms of crafting a team that has the ability to win baseball games and not by the long ball. Obviously, Judge and Giancarlo, and then Rizzo was hot, have been driving the ball out of the ballpark, all well and good. But especially, obviously, up in Toronto, you're in the Dome, so it's not a factor. But especially in these early season games where the ball isn't as lively because of the temperature, you need guys to draw walks, and that's where guys like Josh Donaldson, Aaron Hicks come in. Higashioka, always a mouthful for me to say.
That's a hard one.
But these guys drawing walks, hitting for contact, getting guys on base. That's what blew that game open yesterday in the 7th inning for the Yankees. And, as they approach the 7th inning now, could that happen? I don't know. But it's a team that's orchestrated to win baseball games by any means necessary, and that includes hitting for contact, which the Yankees have struggled to do in past years.
Yeah, absolutely they have. I think that, Aaron Judge this year, his contact rate is better than it has been in the past few years especially, which is very helpful when he is as good as he is when he does hit the ball. He's got a 71.9% contact rate, which is up. The last, 3 years, he's been somewhere in the 60s with that number. So already a bigger deal for him. Something that I will point out about him though, him and Giancarlo, that is his name. They both are walking less this year, which is interesting. They're not doing that as much, which is that ever good? I don't know. But the fact that he has that contact rate, the fact that he's able to hit these crazy home runs is incredibly helpful, because if you can balance that out by being smarter, hitting smarter, then it's fine to see. Also, their strength as a team is their strength. There's no other way to say it. They hit hard, they hit fast. Giancarlo Stanton with a 119.8 mile per hour ball the other night. That is the fastest ball in baseball this season. How terrifying must that be to be in the outfield on the receiving end of that ball, right?
I totally hear you, and you touched on this a little bit, that their walk rates are down, and I think that really speaks to their aggressiveness now this year, and obviously it's paid off, like you can see in the numbers that the runs have been off the charts. And I think if you're the Yankees, you do want your sluggers to have that aggressive mindset in particular. So I think I'd be okay with those walk rates dropping a bit as long as this offense stays hot. But, I'm not, so sure that this Yankee team is going to be able to keep doing this throughout the regular season. Obviously, last year they were leading the AL East. I really got my hopes up, and then obviously they fell short. They ended up falling in the wild card game, a 1-0 tough one to the Red Sox, and I see a lot of the same things on this team that they're rolling right now. The offense is obviously as hot as it possibly could be, but when it's September or even August and your offense has slumped a bit, will this pitching staff and bullpen be there in those 2-run, 3-run ball games? I wonder, and I wish I were more optimistic. Maybe he's just coming off last season, but personally, I don't know. I don't see this team. It seems like a bit of this 11-win streak seems like a bit of a facade to me.
Well, it's interesting when it's this early, because I think the biggest thing I noted about this winning streak, and what's so impressive about the way they're handling the Blue Jays, is that, in this winning streak, it started after a loss to the Tigers, and then followed by a sweep of the Guardians, and then the Orioles, and then the Royals, and now looking for a sweep of the Blue Jays. The Guardians and the Royals, obviously divisional opponents of my beloved White Sox, both teams that are still trying to find their place at the table in terms of, thinking long-term towards a playoff future, and, they don't know their identity. Obviously, the Royals are young, so they're going to just keep trying to add and build, so maybe in 2 years they'll be a team that's threatening. The Guardians, it's going to be questionable whether they're buyers or sellers come July. And then the Orioles, it's the Orioles. Yeah. We'll move along from our analysis. But you're beating the teams that you should. And that's always crucial to firing up an offense, because, we saw it in Kansas City when they had 4 home runs in a game. When Rizzo was hot, when he was hitting the ball seemingly every at-bat. Yeah. It's when you're facing pitchers that aren't, renowned aces in the league, that you need to go out there and be in attack mode, as you're talking about, Miles, because it's stuff you should be able to hit. It's stuff you're paid to hit. And, dropping those games is tough, especially when, you're starting to click as an offense and you're looking for a gel, especially, Miles, you mentioned, much to probably a lot of Yankees fans' displeasure, that loss to Boston last year. Obviously, a team that's expected so much from Yankees faithful, obviously, but, you bring back Joey Gallo, Giancarlo, Judge, you've got the big bat power, and you're looking for that to continue, and thus far it has, and I'm happy you guys brought up the walk rate, because if I'm a Yankees fan, that's the one scary thing staring me in the face, because obviously now you're hitting for power, you're getting a lot of runs across. At some point, it's going to stop. At some point, you're going to get figured out, and, obviously these guys are professionals and can adjust, but when the walk rate is so low for a ball club, it makes it harder and harder for that team to generate and manufacture runs, because, say Judge is going to hit a slump at some point this season. The numbers he's putting up right now, as much as Yankees fan would love for them to last, they're eventually going to have to drop. It's just the way the game works. And the question is can him and Stanton, when those numbers drop, can they adjust and not be so aggressive? Because the one criticism that's always been there of Giancarlo is he's either hitting the ball 200 miles an hour or he's striking out. There's seemingly no in between. So can they adjust their stance? Because when this winning streak ends, it's going to ask a lot of this Yankees team of how they're going to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up, what happens when they hit a low point? My question is, what happens if they get injured? Because this is a squad that has had terrible luck with injuries in the past as well. Aaron Judge being one of the main people who has suffered from these injuries. When we were talking about his contract negotiation at the beginning of the year, that was a big point here about does he deserve this 9-year, $300 million contract if there's the possibility of him being injured as he's getting older.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, if he goes out, if Stanton goes out, I hope they don't. If they do, can this team back it up, especially if that walk rate is lower? If they get figured out by these other teams, is that going to throw such a wrench in their mojo as a team in what they found so far that it's just going to throw them way off base, no pun intended, or will they still be okay? They're red hot right now, like you said, but it's going to come to an end eventually. It has to.
Yeah, it seems like a project that's going to inevitably unravel at some point, and then it's scary because once you lose the offense, it puts pressure on your pitching staff, and that pressure can lead to, obviously, your bullpen getting expired early in series and things like that. So, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's a positive feedback loop right now. Everything's rolling for the Yankees, but I just really hope, as a New York fan, it's something that continues throughout the August, September, because obviously it didn't last year, and with all this money invested in these Bohrer hitters, you expect results, and you expect results into October.